Good evening, everyone. This is Henry Seals. This is Henry. I wanted to welcome you all. Unfortunately, there's only one of us with technical difficulty. So for you, this evening, Nick, it'll be you. But I just want this will be recorded and shared with the community here in Japan. So let's make the best of the situation. I want to introduce you and say welcome this evening to our Africa Pitch Night. Now, the reason we launched this, I would like to consider it a series, but while we launched this event, primarily for various reasons that are related that I can personally relate to, given my own journey towards understanding and being involved in investing in the continent. Now, several years ago, a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, actually on this call, had shared with me he was working for Unilever. He was in Nigeria, and he was explaining to me about how vibrant it was, how vibrant the market was, the number of opportunities there, and he just waxed poetically about it. And from my perspective as an American, as a Westerner, I didn't understand where he was coming from. I had never heard anything particularly positive about Nigeria. Nothing particularly negative either, but nothing particularly positive. The news didn't really share, what's going on in that world. But I listened, and the reason I listened was because he was my friend and I trusted him. And through the years, over the last 14 or so years, I've been sort of involved in West Africa to some degree, 10 plus years. I came to realize that it is basically the world's best kept secret when it comes to growth, when it comes to potential opportunity, and of course, financial growth, particularly. Now, when I spoke to others, and basically based on that one impetus, I became someone who traveled. I organized trips to Nigeria. We did a tour, Black Professionals Tokyo. We did a tour, and our eyes were open to amazing opportunities there. We were shocked, and we all came back to Japan, sharing our experience with others. People were excited from all walks of life, from all industries, races, genders, etc. They were really excited, but I kept getting the same question. And that question was, are you sure? Why? Why don't I know anything? There was a little bit of skepticism as well. But one thing that was consistent was their desire to understand, right? They trusted me. They trusted me based on my experience here in Japan, and they trusted me and they trusted my words, and they wanted to learn more. And as the years go on, more and more people want to know. And now, in the news, in media, you're hearing about the opportunities in Africa. However, at the same time, there's still not a lot of information about exactly why. It's still a mystery, especially for those of you who are not connected, who do not have relationships in the continent. It must seem like a mystery, like what's going on and how. And because it is a mystery, it probably feels as if it's even more difficult for you to really understand and take advantage of the opportunities there. So this evening, through this Africa Pitch Night, it's not just an opportunity to learn about a fantastic startup business that will transform the way business is done in Nigeria and also be a very profitable one for those who wish to invest. This is an opportunity to ask questions. I had a friend, so I was able to ask what I would consider dumb questions, like what's going on in Nigeria, what's the demographics like, a whole bunch of things to help me understand, because I didn't know. And when it's an unsafe environment or you don't know people, it's hard to ask questions. No one wants to feel dumb. But tonight is the beginning of your journey. Tonight is a place where you can ask those questions and understand. And you're going to meet some fantastic entrepreneurs and people who are working in the continent, who are from the continent, who are returnees as well, who are investing their time, effort, and their life into Nigeria, and they will explain to you why. And then upon that, they'll explain the businesses that they are doing, the type of work they're doing. And if you're interested, this will start your journey. You reach out to them, learn more, and see how you can get involved by building first, as all of us have, building trust and understanding that this isn't a mystery. Just link up with the right people you can trust, people who are working hard, leverage your talents as well to support those people. And together, you're going to do a lot more than you could do alone. So with no further ado, let me first just introduce myself. I think people on this call know me, but there will be people who will see this presentation online and just don't know who I am. Why am I here speaking on this? So let me just quickly introduce myself. So hopefully you can see my screen. My name is Henry Seals. I'm a 30-year veteran in Japan. I'm presently the chief operating officer for a Japan-based startup called Zyko. That's a ticketing and streaming service. Um, Pretty much Japan's premier streaming entertainment service here in Japan. And I've been working for every type of company. I'm a twice published author sharing my experiences here in Japan for both foreigners who wish to come to Japan, but also for Japanese who are trying to globalize themselves. I've worked for, Japanese startups. I've worked for Japanese unicorn companies that have gone public and been sold. I've worked for large financiers. I've worked for small companies, and I've also trained and established organizations, NPOs, and I'm also Japan's first naturalized. I'm a Japanese citizen, human rights commissioner. So I spend my time volunteering, helping Japanese understand their human rights and also protecting their human rights. So my experience in Japan is deep, it is rich, and I think that that has meant that I have a responsibility, especially with my understanding and my experience in the continent, on the continent of Africa, to be that bridge to help Japanese, particularly Japanese people and people in the Japanese community, really take advantage of the opportunities and really fulfill their roles, I think, as global leaders. Japan is a wonderful country. Is lots of resources, lots of talents and skills, both that the Japanese and those who are here as expats have and contribute to the world. And I want Japan to fulfill its responsibilities and to benefit from that. So, with no further ado, I'm going to ask the founder, one of the co-founders of one of the companies that will present tonight. We have one company presenting tonight. The other company's schedule did not allow them to present. LEVERE to present tonight, and that is Uche. Uche, I will bring up the slides. In the meanwhile, can you introduce yourself? You're muted, Uche.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. I'm not sure, depending on your time zone. So my name is Uche, and I am the founder of LEVERE. I have been in IT for over 25 years. Started off my career in Nigeria, worked for a bank, Diamond Bank, which is now part of one of the biggest retail banks in Africa, Access Bank. Then I left Nigeria about 25 years ago and been living in England. Spent time working with Ericsson Services in their IT division, then moved over to a fintech called Adeptra,
Yeah, Uche,
where
can
we
you
created...
explain why you left Nigeria 25 years ago?
Yeah, two reasons. One, I wanted to broaden my career. I left Nigeria at the peak of the dot-com boom. So there was a lot of opportunity outside the country, and people needed skill sets that in my time was pretty limited. We were making the transition between the standard systems everybody had into the internet. So the skills that I had due to a huge amount of money and time in the bank invested in training people like us, made my skill set very, very marketable worldwide. In fact, I got my job while in Nigeria. I interviewed for it and I got a job at Ericsson. Yeah. So I went over there to work for, like I said, Ericsson, spent about 8 years there. And then I moved over to a fintech called Adeptra in the boom of, so Adeptra created software for the banking sector. Now, it was during this period that I came back for my sister's wedding. And this is actually a true story. And when I came back to Nigeria for my sister's, my youngest sister's wedding, I spent 4 days. But in those 4 days, I was completely blown away at the transformation I was seeing in Nigeria. There's a major road in Victoria Island called Ozumbambadi Way. And when I had just gotten, they were building a Radisson Blu, a Sheraton, and I can't remember the name of the other hotel. These three big hotels were just coming up. And then everybody at that point, the word on everybody's lips was Mint, which was supposed to be phase 2 after BRICS, what's it called? Brazil, Russia, India, China. Then Mint was Malaysia, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Turkey as the new emerging markets that were going to transform the world. So I got back to England and I had a conversation with my wife and I said to her, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go to Nigeria to set up because I didn't want to be outside the country when this story is being written. I felt that Nigeria was brilliant in terms of opportunity, given the demographics of the country, the massive population. And at that point, a lot of underdevelopment in the tech space. I wanted to come in early, be part of the foundation, and build out with the rest of the country. And honestly, it's been an amazing journey because one thing about Nigeria that is, it's a bit of a paradox. Even though there is, in some cases, extreme poverty on one section, Nigeria is a leading country in terms of tech. If it exists, we're probably using it. When I was in Nigeria, we were the second country after South Africa to deploy a Superdome server, for example. So in terms of the tech space, we're very, very advanced. And because of the lack of infrastructure in Nigeria, what that meant was technology is used to bridge that gap. So a lot of problems that occur in the Western world, it's taken them decades to build that infrastructure. In the case of Nigeria and a lot of African countries that I've traveled around, you don't have the ability to spend all that money on infrastructure. So the only way you can jump forward is to leverage tech, because with technology, you could potentially build out things cheaper without investing in millions and millions of miles of
Cabling and things like
roads and so on and so forth. Yes. And so as part of this journey, I also have the team members. I don't know whether this is a good time to introduce them or when we get to the slide, but each member of my management team has a similar story. And coincidentally, a lot of us work together in Diamond Bank. That is something we have to talk about because Diamond Bank, even if I say so myself, hired the best and the brightest. The bank forms the foundation for almost every single financial institution in Africa. If you're an ex-Diamond Bank staff, you are probably going to be high management in any other bank. And so because of this and because of trust and culture we had, I gravitated towards the same people that I had had working experiences with. So for example, the CTO of LEVERE is Chike. He was in IT when I joined Diamond Bank. He had spent 1 year before I came into Diamond Bank. We formed a very strong friendship. And that friendship has continued over the years. He left Nigeria to Canada at about the same time I left Nigeria for the UK. He spent some time there, then he came back to Nigeria, became a consultant for another bank, and he's been doing consulting work across multiple financial institutions. I also have Sayo, who is my wonderful angel. I had to make some really persuasive arguments for her to give up what she felt very comfortable doing to join us in this startup. Busayo also has some background in the UK, and then she came back to Nigeria and she worked with the CEO of, again, Diamond Bank to set up the SME infrastructure that turned Diamond Bank into the biggest retail bank in Nigeria. Then I also have Eze. Eze was also another IT guy back in the day. He left Diamond Bank at about the same time I left to the UK. Then from the UK, he went to the US. From the US, he went to Indonesia, spent a long time there, and also came back to Nigeria because of the opportunities he sees there.
that.
So the commonality between the four of us as the senior management team is the fact that we feel that all the opportunities in Nigeria, all the problems in Nigeria create opportunities. And we have the skill, we have the enthusiasm, we have the bandwidth to leverage some of the stuff we got from living outside the country to develop to develop our country. And again, like I said, it's been an amazing journey, frustrating in many cases, but absolutely amazing in some other ways.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Jay. I think that's compelling, and I think what I think people may not understand when it comes to the tremendous growth that's happening in Nigeria is that it's a lot of returnees. It's a lot of returnees. It's a lot of the best and brightest of Nigeria coming back to build its future. And I just wanted to make sure that that is punctuated as we move on and we talk about the, how you're also supporting the biggest, the best, and the brightest who decide to remain, which I think is one of the aspects, the beneficial aspects of LEVERE and its service. So let me let you get into the presentation. And again,
Okay.
Nick, and of course others who will be joining, there's still some technical difficulties with people joining.
Okay, that's fine.
Ask
Okay.
questions at any time. So before we move on, I just want to ask
Mhm.
Nick, since you're here particularly, are there any particular questions about Nigeria or the market, or just anything that Uche has said that you may have any questions on? Please
Not
feel free.
really, but I was just interested actually. You mentioned you went to the UK, and
Mhm.
Henry just mentioned about returnees. What brought you back? What was the incentive? I may have missed it in the introduction.
Yeah, so I said I came back for my sister's wedding, my youngest
Ah,
sister. And when I came back, I spent 4 days, but those 4 days was incredibly eye-opening because there was so much going on. There was a lot of expansion in the tech space. There were hotels being built. And for me, one of the things I look for is when you see international brands setting up shops. So there was Radisson Blu, Sheraton, and so on and so forth. There was a lot of energy, and then a lot of the network that I had at that point, because we had all started our careers in the early 90s, or well, mid to late 90s. So a lot of the people that I had come up with were now in upper management, which meant they were decision makers. And we had a lot of conversation, and there was a lot of hunger for change. Yeah. So I decided to bite the bullet. And if I might add, Nick, um, I when I bit the bullet, I went all in. So it wasn't a question of stick one foot in the UK and then one foot in Nigeria. I do still live in England. I travel back and forth. But what I mean is no other job. I just quit my job on the 31st of January. And on the 1st, I was out of work, but I had a startup.
okay, okay, yeah. I thought, I just jokingly aside, I'm from the UK. I thought you were going to say, yeah, I'm leaving the UK after everything that's going on there at the moment. So
No, no, no,
no,
no.
that's great. It's good to hear your story.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
So please, okay, do you want me to move to the next slide?
Yes, yes, please. The next slide. Okay, so introduction. So LEVERE is an African technology startup. And it's a digital platform that we created to target changing the business environment for micro, small, and medium enterprises. We'll go into this shortly. During this presentation, we hope to give an overview of Nigeria specifically and Africa in general, to talk about tech investments, the SME sector, the opportunities we offer via our firm, the team, introducing them, and hopefully some of them will be able to speak for themselves. Talk a little bit about the platform, talk about our funding needs, and take questions, even though we can stop at any point to take your questions. Next slide, please. Okay, so the management team here.
Yeah, okay, great, please. Sorry.
Yeah, so the management team, I've already introduced myself. Uche, I mentioned Chike, sorry, and
Moving automatically.
Busayo. Yeah, yes, I think so. There's some kind of timer on it. Jibola and Eze. I think instead of me just drawing on Chike, can you just introduce yourself real quick?
You're muted, Chike.
Your mic is muted, Chike.
Good day. I hope you can hear me. Glad to be
Yes, I
here.
can.
All right. So I am Chike Amenike. Like Gucci has elaborated before, we both started off in Diamond Bank, after which we went our various ways in terms of seeking opportunities elsewhere. And coincidentally, part of the same thing that drove us to explore and acquire talents in the diaspora also was part of the things that also brought us back. So my focus is on the application and the platform, the technology part of the business, all right? And which I said, it is an exciting journey. right? With a lot of challenges and also a lot of opportunities. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chike. Sayo, can you speak at the moment? Is she still here?
She's still on.
Okay.
But I don't think she's able.
Okay, she's not. Okay. Okay, she's here.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Busaya Aderomo. Nice being here again. My journey thus far, like Uche mentioned, we all started off in Diamond Bank, and over the course of time, I've been an SME specialist, even when I've been able to work in different industries. Right, I started off from the banking industry, Diamond Bank, but I've been opportunity to delve a bit into public sector. I've been in the manufacturing, I've been in construction, and right now I'm in tech. What that has done for me thus far is I've been able to see in the SME space a lot of pain points that the SME space. And particularly, there's some constant ones that I'm happy that with a platform like LEVERE, we're going to be able to address. You could ask me what we talk about the financing, we talk about infrastructure, pointing majorly on the technology bit as well. We talk about government backing as well, and of course, the research and development. So I'm happy that we have this platform to be able to at least say where we feel, to say what the things we feel we need, things we definitely need in the SME space, and hopefully get help in that area as well. Thank you.
Okay. Jibola is not around at the moment. So next final is Eze. Eze?
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You see your video as well.
Perfect. Well, I don't know if that's so perfect. Okay, thank you. A pleasure to be here as well. My name is Ezenwanyu Kumere. And as Uche mentioned, we all had that nice fond bond of excellence at Diamond Bank. And like Uche, I left the bank for England, but that was more academically driven. So I went back to school, and from there started a very illustrious consulting career, which has taken me to most continents. Most of my time has been spent in Indonesia, where I've been working on transformation across different sectors. The latter part of the last 25 years, it has been focused on development. So with microfinance, where in the Philippines and Indonesia, I've helped transform a couple of, or digitize a couple of microfinance institutions. Just this year, I think I'm the newest kid on the block. Uche approached me, and the minute he told me about the LEVERE platform, the vision, and the team, I was sold. So I've moved back to Nigeria, and I'm happy to be part of such a dynamic team. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the core platform internally is called Circle without the E, and it's meant to represent everything a circle is meant: continuity, 360 degrees of relationship. And it's a trustless digital platform for verified Nigerian businesses. Trustless in the sense of technology, which means that the concept behind it is for companies to work together, they don't need to know each other, because we will take the burden of verification off them. And based on some of the internal controls we put in place, the ease of which small businesses interact will not be based on who do you know or how well do you know this person. It will be similar to what happens in the West when you go on Amazon to shop. If you go on Amazon to buy stuff, not everything you're seeing there is owned by Amazon. Sometimes it's a third-party retailer, but it doesn't bother you. You pay whatever money you want to pay, and you're assured that the brand equity of Amazon is protecting you. At LEVERE, we would like to think that we're not just a company, but we are, I'm trying to get a good word for it, but we are evangelical about about what we're trying to do. We're trying to reshape an entire industry. We were trying to do something that has not been done successfully by anybody in Africa, and that is to coordinate small businesses in such a way that we leverage their economies of scale. Our mission is to become a global leader in sustainable fintech, driven by innovation and empowering of the small businesses. The vision is to include sustainability, client-centric solutions, and dedicated to enriching the lives of our members. Now, please, Henry, if I start to lecture, please just pull me back, okay? Because sometimes I can get a little bit lost in this whole thing.
I think what you might want to do, I mean, I think the next slide sort of does it, sort of explaining why this is important, why this is necessary.
Okay.
Next slide.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, yes. So the next slide. Good. So, although we have a plan for world domination, Africa, but the initial focus is on Nigeria. Sorry, you're going? Yeah, on Nigeria. Now, some interesting country statistics. So Nigeria has a population of 230 million, depending on who you ask. Some people say 200 million, some say as much as 240 million. But what is not in doubt is that we are the most populous country in Africa and probably in the top 5. Now, out of this population, we have the youngest demographic in the world, irrespective of whether it is China or India. 60% of Nigerians are below the age of 25, and 85% of Nigerians are below the age of 50. That means that from a pure human resources angle, Nigeria has a tremendous amount of working capital. The people that can do the work, that have the energy, the interest and all that is, you know, they exceed any other population anywhere. Urbanization, though, depending on how you would define that, is 50% of the population live in the urban areas, and those are made up of A, B, and C towns. So A towns, you could classify A as Lagos and Abuja and maybe Kanu. B are the Kadunas, the Enugus, and so on and so forth, and all that. But the vast majority of Nigerians over the past 30 years have moved away from the villages, where it was mostly focused on small-scale agriculture, to the cities, where you have a lot of them in the service sector, retail sector, and to some extent, the manufacturing sector. The middle class is very small, and we are hoping that if we succeed in what we're trying to do, we will be able to boost this middle class. Again, we're going to explain that shortly. The internet penetration of the country is currently at 70%. Now, this is something that I would like to emphasize on, because 10 years ago, internet penetration was less than 30%. So over the past 10 years, it's grown 40%, and that has been driven mostly by mobile networks. So what you will notice in Nigeria is that there are not a lot of fixed lines. England has cable. England and America and the rest of the world, we have a lot of cable and co. But in Nigeria, the vast majority of the internet is mobile-based. Even the ISPs will in most cases have a SIM card that hooks up to satellite arrays or whatever to provide internet access to offices and to businesses. The government are focused, well, this new government is focused on the small businesses. One of their emphasis is trying to grow the middle class by promoting small and medium scale enterprises. So the conclusive statement here, based on the combination of size, population, increased internet penetration, presents a very tech-friendly environment for investment. One other point I'd like to point out here. Now, one thing you would notice in Nigeria is, could you go to the next slide, please, Henry? Yeah. Okay.
It might move again
Yeah.
for some reason for timing, but
Okay.
I'll put it
So,
back.
okay, good. So one thing you would notice in Nigeria is that there's a massive amount of online interaction. I think Nigeria was supposed to be just behind the United States, but above many countries in terms of using social media. So Nigeria has a lot of social media engagement. And through that social media, there's a lot of e-commerce. So it's not necessarily the single entities you would find in the West where you have the Amazons and the eBays and the Alibabas. But there are giants like that in Nigeria, Jumia, Payport, Udala, Konga. But a lot of the e-commerce is via social media, Instagram, Twitter. And because of this, it throws up two major problems. One is the logistics of delivery, and two is the question of trust. Many people do not want to interact with these online sales because you could send the money and what you get is subpar product. The second thing that comes up with such a massive population that doesn't have that big a GDP is access to finance and credit. Nigeria doesn't have a unified system to monitor credit like we do with Equifax and Experian and so on and so forth. So what that means is that getting loans is very expensive. And even if you get those loans, it requires security to before you get it, because recovery would be low if you vanished, since there is really no way to codify your credit history or to be able to access you as a person. Then there are more sophisticated threats that have been mentioned about Nigeria. Everything from hacks to intercept to man-in-the-middle attacks via email, changing things and all that stuff. So in some ways, these things are really strong threats, but they also create opportunity in the sense that, could you go to the next slide, please?
Sorry, we already had someone just join us from the say, Mayumi. We will. This is being recorded, so you'll be able to see.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go. There.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So these are just some stats. Unfortunately, it's so tiny here. But these are just some stats about how Africa is changing and all the stuff that is going on. We'll probably share this slide after, and they can take a look at this part. Yeah. Henry?
Yes. Okay,
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
yeah. So next slide. Right. Now, we've been talking about the problems, and before we talk about ourselves, we also want to mention some of the Nigerian companies that have completely changed the paradigm in Africa. As the bottom of this page says, 4 of the 7 unicorns in Africa are Nigerian startups. And some of these big companies are companies like InterSwitch, which created, again, InterSwitch was a market leader. They did something nobody else had done, which was to not just create an electronic payment processing, but they created a unified gateway that linked all the banks together and allowed transfer of money between banks and between people's accounts. You have Jumia, which is one of the foremost e-commerce sites in Nigeria. Andela, which many people have interacted with. They're very popular in terms of the training and outsourcing. You have Paystack, another payment solution. Flutterwave, another payment solution. One thing you would notice about these guys is payments are very big in Nigeria. And that is because of the large number of unbanked people. Depending on the statistics, just 10 to 20% of Nigerians are banked. The rest of them are unbanked. Again, this presents an opportunity because the big people like Paystack and Flutterwave and PiggyVest and co, they came in and created an enhanced experience that allowed people to perform financial transactions without necessarily going through the orthodoxy of standard banks. Next slide, please. Okay, so the SME sector for Nigeria. Now, under the Nigerian definition of SMEs, anything from zero, which is defined as nano, then there is micro, small, and medium. The medium has a turnover not in excess of 500 million naira a year. So based on this definition, the
Can you
size
just do a
of SME,
translation? Sorry, can you just do a translation of what, how much
500 million
dollars?
means?
Yeah, 500 million naira.
Yeah. Okay. I would do the translation using the exchange rate. So let's say about $5 million. But in terms of the buying power,
Right.
I would say that 500 million would be like $50 million in the US. Not in terms of exchange rate now. Do you understand?
Understood.
That's to achieve a 500 million turnover. A company doing that will be the equivalent of a company turning over 50 million in the US. Yeah. So by that definition, 37 million MSMEs exist in Nigeria, right? That's 98% of them. The 2% here are the enterprise organizations, the Access Banks, the Shells, Exxon Mobil, and so on and so forth. Productivity, the National Bureau of Statistics say that 49% of our GDP is the contribution of the SMEs. Next. Oh, just one quick one. And the segments here are the retail, the services, manufacturing, and agriculture. As I mentioned earlier, with the shift from the villages, Nigeria has become, unfortunately, less agrarian and more into the retail and services. A large number of young people work in the service sector, and then wholesale and retail. There are huge amounts of supermarkets, mom and pop shops, and so on and so forth. Manufacturing, unfortunately, has also taken a hit in Nigeria. So a lot of our stuff is imported, but there are still manufacturing companies that are doing very well. And that space is occupied by the Indians, the Chinese, and the Americans that come back, set up massive companies, and produce everything from plastics to fertilizers. Yeah. Next page, please. Right. So SME challenges. I'm going to open up my screen here because this is very tiny.
Oh, it is.
But
Okay,
I can. It's fine. We're seeing the same thing. Just
I think the
yeah.
sharing it has split screen. I can just change that.
No. It's absolutely okay. It's fine. I can just read off mine and then I'll come back to your screen in a minute. Yeah. So besides the vast number of market opportunities that we've addressed, there are a lot of problems in Nigeria. We will not shy away from them. But as I've said multiple times, with those problems come those opportunities. We've broken them down into 5 sections. There might be more. There probably are, but I'll just run through them quickly. Expensive debt. That is one of the major problems with small businesses in Nigeria. Loans are expensive. It could be up to 35% if you're lucky. It could go as high as 65% per annum APR. No inventory financing, strict collateral requirements. I mentioned that already. Absence of easily accessible credit history records for businesses. Supply chain, very little competition in the wholesale space because our manufacturing has shrunk and importations are done for most things. Only the big 900-pound gorillas are in control of that. And what that means is you have limited competition. So a lot of small businesses are price gouged, unfortunately. Then you have difficulty to businesses complement market offering. Delivery logistics. Deliveries are a nightmare in Nigeria. Proper addressing. Now, this is something that we take for granted in the West because almost everywhere is mapped. But in Nigeria, even within the major metropolitan areas, you could have areas that do not have any real address. And without an address, it's difficult for you to be able to do business because the person is of no fixed address, basically. Limitations, then we go into marketing. Advertising is very expensive. we have digital media that has democratized that to some extent. But in terms of radio, television, and newspaper ads, they are very expensive. And you would notice that the vast majority of advertising on those platforms are done by big enterprises. Then there are lots of difficulties in scaling when a small business is trying to move from one tier to the other, whereby they need to be more in your face in the retail space. It's really difficult to get companies willing to work with them. Even the advertising agencies are set up to work with enterprise organizations. They don't really have a bouquet of services that allows a small business to be able to budget to be able to create advertising campaigns within their budget. Government, there's a lack of trust in the government because in many instances, and this is some of the feedback we gathered during our proof of concept, many people were a little bit apprehensive about sharing their corporate details because they felt that once the government gets a hold of it, then they start to tax you. And they don't want to pay, they're happy to pay tax if they can see the result of the tax, but they don't want to be taxed or multiple taxation is happening and they reap little or no benefits from it. Then you have multiple levies on small businesses that come from many duplicated services across the 3 tiers of government in Nigeria: local, state, and federal. Then slow impact of policy changes within the sector. And in some cases, this slow impact is from a lack of knowledge. So many of the small business owners, because of the lack of trust and because of being very short-sighted, they are more concerned about where they're going to get their daily bread. It means they are not really focused on what's going to happen next. And because of that, sometimes information that could be beneficial to them is ignored or they're not even aware of it. Then operations. From an operational point of view, business payments are very difficult to get, even not just from consumers, but on a B2B basis. Companies, you can supply something to them and they might not pay you in full, or they'll pay you, or they might not even pay you at all and defer it 30 days, 60 days. And if you borrowed to finance that operation, it can lead to bankruptcy very quickly, because if you're not careful, by the time you get paid, the interest on the loan you took out will be more than your profits. A lot of the small businesses in Nigeria do not have access to CRM and office tools. Now, again, these are very basic things that they lack access to. Why? Because the big companies, the Oracles, the SAPs and co., even though they have small business solutions, they are priced in US dollars. And given the current exchange rate, many of these things are pretty expensive. You could say somebody's supposed to pay $50 per seat per year, which is not much if you lived in America. But when you multiply that and it becomes 100 grand, a lot of small businesses will not spend, assuming they had 10 staff, they're not going to want to spend ₦1 million a year on just having licenses to do some basic stuff. Then you have availability of soft skills, IT, HR, legal, tax, accounting, and so on and so forth. Now, many of these things here is out of careful research and interaction with, let me come back to the Zoom. Many of these things here are from over a year of data acquisition, engaging with the small businesses, doing investigations, working with government agencies and some banks that are focused on small businesses. And we collated all these things together to say, okay, these are the problems that a typical small business experiences in Nigeria. How do we solve it? Next slide, please. So this is how we are solving it. It's a continuous process. We will continuously be refining the product. We will be releasing additional versions. We are taking user inputs, feedback from customers, and we will be addressing them. But first and foremost is that the platform is a web application. I'd like to emphasize something here. on purpose, it's a web app. The reason is when you build a standard application that you need to do on Android and iOS, Nigeria has one of the lowest downloads. It's a little bit of a paradox, given the fact that we use social media so much. So what happens is you could see 60 million downloads for Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, Telegram, then 500,000 for the next big ones that are like a banking app. So even the banks have that problem. They might have 20 million accounts on their books, but less than 5% of them would download their apps. And when you talk to the people, one of the things they say is it consumes data. They don't trust the app. So by design, we focused on a web application that gives, similar to what you will see with LinkedIn. You can use LinkedIn on the app, or you can use LinkedIn on the web. So we are for now working on just creating a user experience that doesn't interfere with their day-to-day. Now, some of our service features, SME registration. Now, I mentioned the fact that there were some of these companies lack the soft skills that are required to thrive as a business. And it starts from the very beginning, whereby they are not even properly registered with the organizations they need to be registered with. So there comes one of our partnerships with Smeden, which is a government quango for Nick, that is British, but a ministry. And that means it stands for Small Medium Small Medium Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria. The mandate of Smeden is to create an enabling environment for small business. So when we came up with our idea, we had a lot of meetings with them. We actually had a meeting with the presidency, and they loved it so much. They made Smeden our partners. And so we work with Smeden to register these small businesses. Now, when you have a Smeden ID, it gives you access to government grants and all sorts of help. We are working with the government and with a couple of partners that you will see at the end to work on low interest loans. Now, how do we get low interest loans in a country where you have 35 to 65%? One of the ways to do that is to create a credit history. And the way we create a credit history is that within the ecosystem, every transaction is kept within the ecosystem. So once you're part of our ecosystem, once you're a registered member, you've been verified, and you're now transacting B2B or B2B DSPs, your credit file is kept. Now, the banks we are working with are now more comfortable to grant loans because they can now see your history. So in 6 months' time, they see that your turnover, for the sake, I'm going to keep the examples in dollars, right? So they see that over the past month, your turnover has been $5,000 a month, okay? Then that means after 6 months, you say you want to scale and you need another $5,000. They can make a pretty good judgment whether that is a good investment. If you said you wanted $100,000, you'll be rejected immediately because they would see that your capacity over the is 5,000 USD. So that's one of the ways. Now, we have a digital wallet that ties everything together. This digital wallet, not only does it create an automated escrow, addressing one of the problems we mentioned before, whereby businesses are afraid to work with each other because of payments. So a business wishes to make a transaction, the money is taken out of their electronic wallet and automatically escrowed. When the delivering company has delivered the service or the product, the money is released to them. We also have a feature where we're building in called Spend Lock. Now, this I need to tell a little story on. One of the things you come across in a largely financially illiterate country, please note I'm talking about financial illiteracy, not actual academics, right? Is the lack of understanding of how to make a profit. So you give somebody a £10,000 loan to buy equipment for their business. As they leave the bank, a child falls sick. Now, being pragmatic, what you should do is focus, take your £10,000, buy buy the server, the oven, whatever it is you wish to buy, because that is what you're supposed to use to double your sales to be able to pay back the loan. But your child is sick, you don't have healthcare, you don't have the right things, and the doctor says you need a £1,000 deposit. You take £1,000 out, you've given it to them, you now have 9 grand, and you don't have enough money to pay for that equipment. Over the next month, you might end up spending that whole money, not because you're trying to steal, but just because life happens. And then at the end of the month, when the time for your first payment comes, you realize that you haven't increased your capital growth. I mean, your cash flows, and you're unable to make that payment. So to prevent that, one of the things we did is to do something that has never been done, and that is to create a spend lock. So what that means is, if EcoBank, one of our partners, says, I want to help women in business, and by helping women in business, I want to address, for the sake of argument,
Uche, we've lost you. Did we lose him?
It looks like that.
Yeah.
Uche,
Can one of you perhaps step in and continue his presentation till we can see if we can see a connectivity issue?
sure. Although he was mid example, but okay.
The example he was talking about with regards to
The spend lock.
Yeah, the spend lock.
And being able to manage finances. I mean, I think as he mentioned, those are only a few of the solutions that the platform presents to enable and help the small businesses with the everyday problems they have. That also helps with payments. Now, while in Nigeria there are lots of attempts by various startups to digitize payments, and they do a great job. It's mostly focused in the consumer B2C consumer space. So it's end customers, and the B2B space is left is underserved in that regard, or not as served. And so obviously providing a wallet feature like this that tracks all the transactions not only lends itself nicely to credit recording, which goes on to support further financing for these small businesses, but it also provides an opportunity to automate business to business payments in a cleaner way. So some of the other features here, subsidized offers, that this is again, LEVERE being able to access volume discounts from its partners, and then sharing that value to businesses, to small businesses. Sorry, the slide just moved.
Let me just get people in for a second.
Okay. You have, shall I continue or should I wait?
You can continue.
It's recorded, so okay.
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay, sorry, this this slide is moved forward. If you could, yeah. Okay, so
which slide? This slide here?
Yeah, no, that's good. We're back where we were. I just to wrap up on the slide on features. The set of features here, several of them are ready right now.
Hi.
And
sorry, Eze. So sorry, just to interject. I'm back, but you can continue, Eze.
No, please take the floor. We're on additional benefits.
Okay, that's fine. But before I take the floor, I actually want to make I'm so happy. We had a power cut. I'm in a hotel room in Abuja. I came in this morning, and they had a power cut, which disconnected their Wi-Fi. So apologies about that. But that's part of the problems, and there's a solution for that. So
yes,
okay.
you were talking before you left. You were talking about the spend lock.
Spend lock. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So are we going to go back to that screen, or do I just talk about it and then we move to this one?
I'll go back. One second.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So with the spend lock, an Echo Bank says we want to help women in business, and we want to give $1,000 to them to buy computers so that girls they can learn how to code. Now, these the small business has been registered with Smeden. They have a Smeden ID. We verify them, and we wish for them to buy any laptop from anywhere they want to. But we don't want them to spend the money on something else. So EcoBank gives $1,000 loan at 5% per annum or something. Now, what now happens is the BDSPs are business development service providers. Yeah. So these BDSPs will, sorry, hold on. These BDSPs will be registered with us. And so they are verified. We know they exist, and they are certified distributors of Dell, Lenovo, HP, or whatsoever, Apple even. So these, the members can only spend their money on computers, right? So even if, for example, one of the recipients wanted to buy, let's say, an inverter. An inverter is something we use to supply temporary power during a power cut. They wouldn't be allowed to, because the spend lock by Echo Bank is on laptops. Yeah, so that's an example of spend lock. Then we have subsidized offers. Now, these subsidized offers are already based on the leveraging economies of scale. So we have a situation where we are targeting 900,000 companies to be registered at on Sweden, on our platform within the first year. The plan is simple. If I go to any of the BDSPs, as any of the partners, and I say to them, I'm going to lower your cost of acquisition, I'm going to take care of, to some extent, the logistics of it, and I'm going to take away the guessing about who's going to pay, who's not going to pay. All I want from you is to give me a discount that cannot be matched, right? Those companies are happy to have that conversation. We've already proven that by the partners we have. So they say to us, great, if you can bring me 100,000 small businesses that will spend, for the sake of this argument, for the sake of this illustration, $100, right? Which means a $10 million packet. I'll give you a 30% discount on this item. The members within the ecosystem are informed of this, and should it be a product or a service they want, they indicate interest. Their accounts are, the monies for these payments are withdrawn from their accounts, from their electronic wallets, and the partner, the BDSP, sees the $10 million is there, is ready, and they provide the services, and we release the $10 million to them. So based on this, we have massively subsidized offers. The telcos is our biggest success story, because we have a 70% discount with them. Which means now the part of the reason too the telcos did this is that we turned the screw a little bit. We told them that they needed to support small businesses. The enterprise organizations have a lot of money, but these small businesses don't. So it was important that it wasn't just about driving profits, but their corporate social responsibility. Then we have business delivery. Now, these are the soft skills we mentioned. Our legal company secretary, Jibola, who's not here, he works, he's a senior partner in one of the biggest, most illustrious law firms in Nigeria, Adeniji Kazim & Co., AK & Co. And one of the things they are doing as part of this project is that they are creating hundreds of simple document templates. These document templates will be uploaded onto the site, and many of our small businesses can download them, insert their company name and address, and they have a very basic contract. We're also working with a lot of third parties that would review contracts for a little fee and help to guide them in these soft skills. We're working with tax people that will help them to prepare taxes, make their make their tax returns to the government, protecting their interest, and they are now legally informed that the government is not going to come after you because we are a single entity protecting all our members. So you don't need to worry about the government coming after you because the government is supporting this by providing some of the services to us. We have soft technical skills. Many of these companies, they are frightened of IT. They think IT requires you to spend a lot of money and get some wizard that's going to charge you a lot of money. But some of the requirements they have are very basic. They want a laptop, they want Windows, they want Office. We are working with Microsoft that can give up to 50% discounts on licensed products. Digital advertising, there's a lot of stuff we're working on in this space. There's an American company we are trying to integrate with that has an amazing software that allows small businesses to create an advertising campaign across using a single dashboard. The advert is pushed across all social media. It's pretty cool. We are actually doing hopefully the final test on Wednesday. Then the integration will be completed. One other thing, the planned customizations will include retail, agro-allied. We're working with different farming. What's the word? I forget the word. Different farming communes, right? There's a company we're also talking with, Novus Agro, which is a company that deals with farmers, supplies seeds and has different collection points. Now, in the agri space, we have an opportunity based on our platform to do both in and outward flow of transactions. We're working with a couple of big manufacturing companies that are looking for someone to put together these farmers and bring the raw materials to them as a single unit. We have financial management, I've already mentioned that, food services, transportation. Now, the transportation is probably going to be, I like to be, to borrow as a phrasing, for full transparency, transportation and logistics is more going to probably be in 2025 because that in itself is a major headache that requires a lot of moving parts to solve. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this was where you guys were. So some of the stuff we've addressed with vendor credibility by vetting, registering, and sorting out the small businesses, we have built in the credibility. Their transaction will increase that credibility, and we would always tie their transaction profile to the kind of access they would have to either grants or loans or credit on purchases. We have, because of the ecosystem and some of the brands we are working with, we will be promoting members, we'll be promoting merchants. It's an entire complex relationship that we hope will pay off within the next 6 to 12 months, whereby we have the merchant of the week or merchant of the day, small business prices, we will do symposiums, we will do fairs, all sorts of things, all of it being all about promoting the small business. We have inbuilt basic CRM tools. With all due respect to SAP and Oracle and co, they have amazing software, but it's too high priced, too complicated for some of the small businesses. Some of them just need something very basic. They want to monitor the contacts they have. They want to automate their contact matrix. They want to be able to respond with inventory. How many of these do you have? Where can I buy them? When can I collect them? We build that in for them. It's cost a minimal amount of money in the local currency, whichever country we're operating in. And that removes the exchange rate fluctuations in price. We have already mentioned inventory control and management, pensions, insurance. I need to just mention this a little bit. Now, pensions, insurance, and HMOs, that's missing here, are things that many of these small businesses are not aware they can actually get for a tiny amount of money. When you mention a HMO, the average small business owner thinks about the platinum HMOs, which cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of naira. But they're not aware that you could, for the price of a meal, get a HMO coverage that would take care of you in an emergency. So this again is where we have another partner, AXA Mansard, one of the biggest insurance companies in the world. They are one of our partners, and they've also given us fantastic pricing because we are saying to them.
Did you say AXA?
Yes, AXA.
Okay,
AXA, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yes, they are one of our partners. Well, the Nigerian part of it, but yes, they are part of our partners. Yeah. So, and the same thing goes for insurance. AXA is providing that too. Many of them don't have insurance when there are these unnatural disasters like fire or burglary. They are pretty suicidal because they don't realize that for not as much as they think, they could insure their shops or their businesses. Then AI. Everybody, AI is a buzzword, but for us is a must-have. We intend to, we're not there yet, build into the AI because with AI automating a lot of these services, a lot of our small businesses will be, AI would increase the efficiency of the ecosystem. It will be able to point you in the right direction, be able to help you with inventory management across multiple vendors. We'll be able to optimize logistics by showing the best delivery routes we need to take to provide the quickest deliveries in the most effective and sustainable manner. Next page, please. Yeah, so this is the opportunity. Eze, Sayo, Chike, I would like one of you to, I need I need to sip of water. But Eze, Sayo, please, can you guys
Sure.
take this one? Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Henry, could you you said you were going to swap out the slide you were mirroring just so I can see. That would be great.
Sorry, I don't know what you mean. I have the slides showing on the screen, but
Okay. That's fine. So thanks everyone. So again, thanks Uche. So where we are today, I think it's a lot of great work has taken place, and it shows in the following key developments. So agreements, Uche mentioned the agreements with the mobile telco providers. All the mobile telco providers have agreements with LEVERE with 70% discounts, which are ready to be offered to SMEs. There's also a non-exclusive agreement with EcoBank, one of the large retail banks in Nigeria, to provide financing for the MSEs. And thirdly, and really important, the nod from the government agency that is supposed to promote the SME market in Nigeria with a 10-year MOU where SMEDEN, the government agency, is going to use LEVERE as its platform to manage the Nigerian micro, small, medium enterprise sector. Currently, the platform build was completed early this year, the beta, and the version is and was in has been in QA since early 2024. There are still a few more agreements under review for solar, for high, with ScanPoint, Tide Energy providing gas products, which is a drive from climate change, because that's also a big move and transition in Nigeria at the moment. And of course, AXA with insurance products. With all these currently in place, the idea is to have a beta release of the platform in Q3, focused on two areas, Lagos and Abuja, to simulate what real life operations will be like, and verify platform usability. Again, the idea of the company and its ethos is continuously iterating the product to make sure it's a good fit for the SME segment. And we will do so even when we branch out of Nigeria to other countries in Africa. Finally, I think, and more importantly, is of course to validate some of the financial projections, because it's one thing to, as you see, a lot of the numbers are based on very clear assumptions, but these assumptions may not always be true. Especially, personally, I like to compare Nigeria to Indonesia because there are so many similarities. Things that everyone feel are logical prove not to be for SMEs. So not just because you tell me I'm going to save money signing up with you doesn't mean I'm going to believe you, because 10 years ago my uncle had a problem with someone associated to the government, or things like if you come to me with a bank badge, then I think you're a loan shark. So you have all these traditions that uh, will have to be overcome. And I think the idea of the beta will be to validate some of these perceptions and understand what they are, and of course to mitigate them. So for the beta, it's anticipated to run for 6 months, during which time the anticipated results would be to have registered 80,000 SMEs, and at an average of $5 per registration fee, that will come to about 400,000 US dollars in revenue. And again, apart from those figures, what is going to be of vital importance is insights on how to scale the operation, to understand the real knacks of the business, marketing effectiveness, digital only or a combination perhaps is what would be best practice, and of course validating our financials. Henry, if you go to the next slide, please.
I'll go to the next slide. So basically,
Yes.
this is, we're getting into sort of like the ask, so to speak, of how people they
Yes.
be involved can be. Okay, please proceed.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the the financials we're talking about. So over the first 12 months of full operation, we expect that the business will generate 4.5 million US dollars in revenue. And this forecast for the first year is based on a few basic assumptions. First is that despite the opportunity to generate revenue across there are many revenue streams possible, we are only focused on revenues by subscription. So each business that's registered pays a subscription, a 1-year subscription of $5. And that's the math there. If we're looking at targeting 900,000, so that's the 4.5 million. Now, 900,000 is based on again a subset. We're only going to be focused on the so-called low-hanging fruit of the SME space. So it's the SMEs that are in the big cities. They're in the urban parts of the big cities. So again, we're not moving far off. So in a country that has 37 million SMEs, we're only looking at 3.6 in the first year. Now, when we factor in expansion and scaling across country, as well as different revenue streams, such as charging different partners a fee, and of course
transactions on the platform is what you're saying.
Transactions on the platform. we're looking at year 2 to year 5, the following revenue and EBITDA.
So sorry, I don't mean
Okay.
to push the conversation, but I think you mentioned before in the previous slide about proving your assumptions and trying to
Yes.
understand whether these make sense and can be done. So I assume you probably have a pilot or a beta test plan that you're going to make a pitch for, I think, in the next slide, correct?
Yes, that's exactly that. So, but these are the numbers that we are trying to validate.
Yeah, to validate your business.
So,
right?
yeah. So, again, just to mention, the estimated cost of operations before the business becomes self-funding is 2.5 million, which is again reasonable considering the revenue output across the 5 years. So that is going to be spent on working capital, which includes marketing, as well as, of course, the R&D and technology, because we essentially see the platform as continuously iterative. So if you go to the next slide,
Will do.
the idea, or if I could take any questions on this before we move to the beta, if there's anyone who has any questions.
Are there any questions? Either you can place them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. And
I'm okay, thanks. Yeah, no, I'm listening. Yeah, thanks, Henry.
no worries, Nick.
Thanks, Izzy. Thanks.
Tony,
Sure, thanks.
Hiro, if any questions? No?
Okay.
Okay, great. See.
Okay, so the ask is for angel support. I mean, primarily, where we need a 2.4 million investment, of course, to cover the operations of the entire business. But at this point in time, for the beta, it's a $250,000 ask to run the beta to validate these numbers. So I mean, that's first and foremost. But not only this, I think what is particularly valuable would be help establishing working relationships with international distributors, manufacturers that are interested in working with Africa, especially with a competitive price point. Sorry, I paused because I don't know if anyone, you wanted to ask something. I heard somebody mention anything. Okay. Okay, perhaps that's just me. Okay. Thirdly, support with technology partnerships. We, as Uche has outlined, there are a lot of very interesting plans for the product. And of course, a partnership with technical expertise outside of LEVERE could help reduce those running costs. So if there are any relationships technically that we could leverage on, that would be extremely helpful. And finally, insights from angels on business partnerships that leverage that we could leverage that are aligned with what we are doing. Perhaps SME support systems or platforms that exist in Japan. This would be, again, extremely beneficial. I think one of the things for me that I really loved about this was I use Estonia as a model of how they try to support SMEs and how it's all there, it's transparent, it's on the web. But again, that's Europe, and it has its own nuances. So I have already started to pull in working with my contacts from my time in Scandinavia and the Nordics I'd really like to establish that further if any of the angels have connections in Japan that we could leverage on. A bit about the raise itself. At this point, the 250K, we're looking at equity, giving equity up for it, and for the beta only, I see convertible loans as well. Sorry for that. And of course, we have safes already drawn up, to back that and any investments we get, and the beta investors will have a right to partake when the actual seed round takes place, which we expect will be some stage after, well after the beta in about 6 to 12 months time. So thank you all. I really would like to pause here to really get a bit of questions from those on the call on LEVERE and what you've heard today. And of course, if there's anything else you want to know about Nigeria, especially as some of us, I'm fresh. I just got back this year, so my insights would be also brand new.
Before people ask questions, I wanted to just state something, just to clarify a point you mentioned up above regarding support with technology partnerships. I would assume because of your technical platform that's obviously using, web-enabled, a lot of data going across the platform. I assume you're using, cloud services, and those cloud services, established cloud services, are expensive, and therefore, a partnership with a company, like for instance, in the startup ecosystem here in Japan, for instance, if there's a company that's doing sort of cloud data services that could be provided to you cheaper, let's say, than Amazon Web Services or whatever it is you happen to be using, those type of things as well, right?
Yes.
So linking you to a startup ecosystem in other parts of the world can perhaps give you, a competitive edge from a financial and perhaps even cutting edge technology standpoint, are some of the things your angel investors can perhaps provide as well, which you're looking for from angel investors, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Just for my clarification, I assumed,
yeah,
I've already spoken to you, but I assume so. I just wanted to double check. Okay. So are there any,
Yeah.
does anyone have any questions here? And the questions particularly don't need to be particularly about what you've seen, just particularly about Nigeria. Some of you have joined later. You may have questions about the overall country in and of itself. There were some demographics earlier in the presentation. Please feel free to ask any questions of Uche and his team.
Hi, Henry. I've got one actually. I've written quite a few here, but it's more generic about Nigeria because, firstly, thanks for the presentation. Really appreciate it, learning about your business. But yeah, I'm just sort of very sort of curious about the country and want to learn a little bit more. And yeah, I'm just sort of, if you're, let's say, for example, you're a new business wanting to move into Nigeria, what are some of the sort of like the restrictions, some of the incentives, some of the sort of benefits of moving into the country if you're starting a small business? And also, what sort of businesses would Nigeria encourage more than anything else?
Okay.
Sorry. Hope it's not a silly question, but yeah, just
no, definitely not.
It's
No. Okay, so based on my experiences, the first thing is the major advantage Nigeria has is population. So what that means is that for anybody that is setting up shop in Nigeria, just a fraction of that market is bigger than the next 5 countries' population. Right next door to Nigeria is Benin Republic, and on the other side is Cameroon. I can't remember their population off the top of my head, but I do know that 10% of the Nigerian population will overwhelm them in a generation. So that is a major advantage. Now, the second advantage of Nigeria is in terms of massive amounts of space. It's a big country, wonderful climate. We don't have any natural disasters and so on and so forth. Now, the challenges, you would face is a lack of infrastructure, which is why a lot of the big companies right now are fintechs and technology companies, because they don't require the bricks and mortar infrastructure you would need for some sorts of businesses. But paradoxically, I'm sorry, it's a little bit, it's always very difficult to try to explain to Nigeria, someone that doesn't live in Nigeria. You
Yeah.
also have the risk takers, the Lebanese, Indians, and Chinese going gangbusters in the country, because they come in, they bring manufacturing in, for example, plastics, foods, ketchup. Heinz and Co. is pretty expensive because of the exchange rate. So we have a company called Zyka Foods, for example, that has a processing plant that can take 100 tons of tomatoes daily, but they are only able to meet 10 tons a day. Now, I know this because we've had a meeting with them, and they were like, if you can reverse engineer your platform to not just take our output, which is what we've manufactured, to your farmers, to your small businesses, to retail, but you could put farmers together to supply us raw material, we will sign up for that too. So if you are setting up in Nigeria and you saw the lack of that infrastructure, but you're willing to take the risk on it, the payback is massive. I'll give you another example because I was making a note when Eze was talking. ScanPoint. ScanPoint is a Scandinavian country, hence the name, in Sweden, that is manufacturing high-tech solar inverters with tubular batteries. Really lovely stuff. They look like iPhones for inverters. Now, the company has set up shop in Nigeria because of power problems. They have a scalable solution that allows you to go from a tiny setup that can power a laptop for a few hours to something that can power air conditioning and all sorts of things in a multi-story building. Yeah. Now, the company is taking the risk and they have a lot of opportunity. They've signed up as partners, and we are potentially talking to a few thousand small businesses that see this as a viable alternative because it pays for itself in 2 years. And if they add solar panels to the mix, it immediately removes the higher cost of generators and the electrical grid. So I don't know whether that answered your questions exactly, but
helpful. Yeah, I'm just thinking.
I could add if you have a few more minutes. So I mean, as just coming back, I think Uche has nailed it. It's really consumer focused because of the vast size. So if your business is targeting consumers, that's always a good sign. This administration, I think the initial concern, and I had this as well, was the temperament of the new administration. I think it's been very clear that they mean business and they want to actually move the needle in terms of seeing transformation in the country. So it's not only the some of the policies that they have started to push on, but the way they've embraced climate change. So that a business that is doing anything in the climate change space, whether it's supply of renewables, competency, or equipment, that's something that is going to be very big. Energy, I think Uche has mentioned. There are opportunities there as well. I think the president and his administration is opening up to foreign investment. The challenge, again, as Uche has mentioned, is that businesses need to be prepared to spend on redundancy and energy supply, making sure you have redundant sources of internet, power, all of that. So the foundational infrastructure you would have to work on, but it does not really dissuade the adventurers from coming in and reaping the benefits, because there's a vast amount of potential here.
Thank you, thank you. So having lived in Japan, and obviously I'm from the UK, and I know how I'm sort of partnering with a very small business here, just from the side on my side role, but there's a lot of restriction in Japan relating to things like medical products coming in, food products, very stringent tests on things like this. How does that compare with Nigeria? So, for example, if a company wanted to bring in a food product, and wanted to sell that in Nigeria, what would sort of be the restrictions and maybe subsidies for that company?
Okay.
Well,
Sorry,
I mean, I think
off tangent there, but yeah.
No. Well, I mean, I put it like this: there are different types of there are different criteria depending on what food product it is. But uh, from what I've experienced this year, it does take anywhere from 3 months to 6 months to get new food products approved. So without knowing the exact what you really want to bring in, it will be hard for me to give you a figure. Incidentally, there are also three main advantageous ways to bring food in, and they seem to be state controlled and not federal controlled. So that was something I found to be quite interesting. So
Okay.
it really would depend
Sorry.
on what you want to bring in and what it needs. If it needs refrigeration, if it needs air or sea cargo.
Yeah. Sorry, Nick, I would like to expand just a little bit on what Eza said. So in Nigeria, there is regulation, and to some extent, it's very stringent. If you were bringing in something, it would need to clear two major organizations: NAFDAC, which is in charge of testing medications and food and co., and SON, Standards Organization of Nigeria. Now, there are probably a lot of other organizations that would need to approve vet and co. But these two, you would need their stamp of approval. And then before the product is sold in Nigeria, it needs a NAFTA code and it needs a SON reference number. Yeah, but that's also why there are corporate law firms that specialize in this. They work with foreign companies that are coming into the country, and they help you navigate all the legal and compliance regulations.
Sorry, for the sake of time.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Nick, I didn't mean to.
Sorry, Henry, that was a long question, but thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate that.
No, Nick, you don't need to apologize. Actually, that's the purpose of this call, is for you to get the opportunity to ask these questions and link up with these ladies and gentlemen who can, even offline, just build your relationship by asking questions that can help you understand the industry, understand the country, perhaps even support the businesses that are presented through these presentation sessions, as well as help you engage the Nigerian market either through your partners or your clients. So no, that's perfectly fine. Just for the sake of time, we started late because of technical difficulties. I just wanted to allow some time for them to sort of close up and provide us their contact details. I'll provide those as well after the call on the LinkedIn site. But I just wanted to give Uche a chance to sort of close up or see if there's any, maybe one more question before we close.
Yeah. Okay. If there are no questions, I can close. 5 minutes to close, and then we can still take more questions.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you close, and let's see if maybe people have questions at the end of that.
Okay. All right. That's fine. If you could go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Before I talk about this, I want to use one company to illustrate the amazing opportunities Nigeria offers, and that is Huawei. I can never pronounce that company properly. I'm sorry, but it's Huawei. Now, just 6 or 7 years ago, they were trying to set up shop in Nigeria. The entire telecom space was controlled by American and UK companies. Huawei came in and turned it all around. They created everything from the servers to repeaters to transmission. They took it over, and they did it in an interesting way. For all the big enterprises, the banks especially, they would give them a zero interest 3-year loan on their products and service, on their products. Now, these companies had long-term agreements with Cisco, Juniper, and so on and so forth. But these were costing thousands of dollars, and the exchange rate was dropping very fast. Between 2013 to 2016, the exchange rate had dropped by 300%. It had started at 150, it was about 450 then. And so for many of these big Nigerian companies, it was really expensive to pay for those licensing fees to Cisco, Ericsson, Nokia, and so on and so forth. And Huawei came in, did what they did, and today the vast majority of enterprise organizations in Nigeria are running on Huawei clusters from end to end, not just servers, but every piece of equipment you need in telecoms or telecommunications or networking. So they came in, they saw the opportunity, they saw the problems, and they addressed it, and they took over the entire market. Unfortunately, many of the American and UK companies have closed up shop and left Nigeria because they couldn't compete. So I just wanted to use that to illustrate. So for the people that are looking to come into Nigeria, is to understand the uniqueness of the environment, understand what there is to offer, and if they can match those things, they would clean out. Now, for us at LEVERE, we are technocrats. Techies, as my former boss used to call us. And we had to get on board an advisory team. This advisory team is made up of these 4 people. There are actually some other additional people, but their photographs are not here and their names are not mentioned. They are behind the scenes, so to speak. But these 4 people, Dele, Kachi, Valentine, and Michael, are people with a vast experience in the Nigerian business space. Please, next slide, please, Henry.
Sure.
I don't know whether we broke down what they do. Okay, they don't. Okay, but I'll just mention it. So Dele has over 30 years experience plus in the banking space. He's another Diamond Bank alumni. Full disclosure, he was my boss back in the day in IT. Then he moved on and up and became a director. Now he's a chairman of multiple companies in the financial services space. Kachi was one of the youngest directors for Procter & Gamble, executive directors. I think he was an executive director in his early 30s. He's worked in multiple FMCGs across the world, South Africa, England, Nigeria. But the vast majority of his C-suite experience is in Nigeria. And he also, by virtue of being a CEO of one of the biggest manufacturing companies in Nigeria called TGI, he had to work with a lot of moving parts, governments, regulators, and so on and so forth. And he brings that vast knowledge to bear in terms of helping us navigate some of these more difficult areas. We also have Valentine. Valentine is American, Nigerian, has interest in a lot of the agri and retail space, also has a lot of hands-on experience in that country, understands the whole import-export thing that Eze was talking about, because he has also had to do that as part of his retail holdings. Michael is an investor that is very keen on Africa and Nigeria, and has a lot of Nigerian friends and people in high places. So he's also able to give advice and insights. We also have a lot of other people. There are a couple of people I cannot mention because of conflict of interest. They are either working in positions where they don't want their names out there, but they are people that understand the enterprise side of things and are happy to help us pull the levers in the background to bring some of the big companies we are working with to come to the table to talk to us. Next slide, please. So what is, why do we have this advisory board? As I've just mentioned, experience that drives the innovation. They are very experienced. They provide strategic guidance for sustainable growth, which we don't intend to flame out after 6 months. As Eza pointed out in one of the slides, we have a 10-year agreement with a government entity that is a primer for the big plans we have for Africa. Deep industry networks. I already mentioned that some of the members of the advisory board I cannot name at this point, but they are there and they form a vast network outside Nigeria too. We have ensuring strong governance with these individuals that have a blue chip experience and a gold pedigree. Their reputation is at stake. That means they're going to keep us on the straight and narrow because they do not want to, be part of anything that would stain their image. And with the strong advisory board we have, they would help us to mitigate risk. They sometimes have insights that we don't have because we might be seeing things from the startup point of view, but they might have insight into government policy that might affect us in 6 months, or exchange rate fluctuations we're not even aware of yet, or competition coming in from outside that might impact one of our business models. Next slide, please. And these are some of our premium partners. We have dozens of other partners. Ogun State is a state government in Nigeria that we are deploying a version of our platform for. Smedan is the one we've already deployed. We have an introduction, again, one of these silent advisory board members, to the Ghanaian Enterprise Agency that is the equivalent of Smedan. And Ghana is looking at us doing something similar in that country. AfroExim is a bank set up by Africa for Africans to replicate some of the stuff done by World Bank and co. And we do have strong partnerships in AfroExim. There are a few things we are supposed to work out, with Nigeria being the test case. Then with AfroExim supporting us, they want us to potentially roll out across Africa. EcoBank, I need to emphasize this, there are 23 major commercial banks in Nigeria, of which we were the bride. Quite a number of banks wanted to work with us, but we chose EcoBank for one reason. EcoBank by design is Pan-African. So they have footprints across the whole of Africa. Some of their executives in Nigeria are like the CTO, the CIO is CIO Africa, with Nigeria just being one of his portfolios. So what that means is when we successfully implement with them in Nigeria, it is easier for us to work with them to roll out across other African countries.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Yeah, so we have about 2 minutes, so.
Yeah, that's fine. So thank you. And because I'm speaking to a Japanese group, arigato.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So let me leave this screen up and just ask, are there any questions anyone may have for Uche and his team before we close? If not, what I'd like to say is thank everyone for joining today. I think that, I think this has been very educational, both on the continent itself, but also about LEVERE, as well as the opportunities that come from challenges. And I think challenges are resolved through trust, cooperation, understanding, and hopefully the understanding part or the trust part or aspects of each one of those components are being built slowly today. The audio and video for this presentation or for tonight's meeting will be shared shortly. I will also share the contact details for the LEVERE team, as well as I believe Uche can also share this presentation as well.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
share this presentation. And I ask you to please feel free to reach out. I'm not a middleman here. You reach out directly to Uche and his team to learn more about LEVERE, how you can support them, as well as learn more about Africa and its really dynamic and growing entrepreneurial future. So no further ado, I'll let everyone go. That's 9 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening and a very safe week.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.